What if the Duchess of Sussex was never pregnant at all? That's not a tabloid headline, it's the quiet claim now roaring through the internet. Her ex-husband, Trevor Engelson, for years. Meghan has captivated millions with her story. The outsider turned royal, the underdog turned icon. But now, the illusion is fracturing, because Trevor has finally spoken. And what he's saying could unravel everything. He's not just casting doubt, he's delivering details. Private, piercing, and personal. From a medical revelation kept hidden for years, to haunting memories of staged emotion and choreographed maternity, Trevor paints a picture that's less royal fairy tale. It's the voice of a man who lived behind the curtain and is now pulling it back. Before we go further, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and drop a comment below. Rewriting history. Trevor Engelson didn't want this. For over a decade, he kept quiet, watching from the sidelines as Meghan Markle rewrote their shared past into a story that suited her image. The failed marriage was brushed off with polite phrases. It just didn't work. Long distance was too hard. But behind the closed doors of their Los Angeles home, something else entirely was unraveling, and now, Trevor says it's time the world knows what really happened. In private conversations, the kind exchanged between friends who still remember what truth feels like, Trevor reportedly dropped the first bombshell. During their marriage, Meghan underwent a hysterectomy, a deeply personal and emotionally painful procedure, one that medically makes it impossible to carry children. It was a heartbreaking moment in their relationship, one they never spoke about publicly, one they mourned together behind drawn curtains. Both families were informed, plans were adjusted, life moved forward, or so Trevor thought. Then came 2018. The palace glowed with celebration. Meghan, radiant and resplendent, stepped onto the world stage announcing she was expecting her first child. For the press, it was a fairy tale. But for Trevor, it was pure confusion. If what he remembered was true, how could this be real? That wasn't even the most unsettling part, because what Meghan did next raised questions no carefully worded press release could explain. To the world, Meghan's pregnancy was a symbol of renewal, a glowing duchess cradling her belly as cameras flashed, headlines praised, and royal fans rejoiced. But to Trevor Engelson, it felt all too familiar, eerily familiar, because he'd seen this performance before, not in a delivery room, not during heartfelt private moments, but in an acting rehearsal. Years before tiaras and royal titles, Meghan took on a small role in an independent drama. Her character, a pregnant woman, Trevor recalled how seriously she threw herself into the part. She practiced every gesture, every movement, obsessing over how pregnant women walked, talked, and carried themselves. She even borrowed weighted belly props to make her posture more believable. Back then, it seemed like dedication to her craft. But years later, watching her on the global stage, hand perfectly placed on bump steps, slowed just so, head tilted in maternal grace, it felt like déjà vu. And then came the video. A resurfaced clip reportedly filmed while Meghan was said to be pregnant with her second child, showed her dancing, no twerking with energy and ease, no caution, no visible discomfort, no sign of the physical reality that usually accompanies the later stages of pregnancy. For critics, it was confirmation of a long-whispered theory. For Trevor, it was confirmation of something else, that Meghan wasn't just presenting herself as a mother, she was playing one, and just when it seemed this story couldn't get more bizarre, Trevor revealed something even more unsettling. Trevor Engelson had learned to expect surprises from Meghan, but the timing of her pregnancy announcement, that one struck him like a scripted twist, just a little too perfect. According to Trevor, Meghan had a pattern. When the pressure built, when criticism grew too loud, she didn't confront it. She redirected it, and that's exactly what happened. The palace was already rumbling with rumors, stories of staff walking out, whispers of diva-like demands behind closed doors. The press had started shifting their tone. The headlines weren't so glowing anymore. Then, like clockwork, boom, the baby announcement. Overnight, the narrative flipped. Gone were the stories of palace tension. In their place, wall-to-wall coverage of the glowing mom-to-be Meghan, smiling, Meghan, blooming, Meghan, maternal. To Trevor, it wasn't just convenient. It was classic Meghan. He'd seen her pull the same moves during their marriage. Whenever their relationship hit turbulence, she'd introduce a distraction. A new job, a tearful story, an emotional revelation. Something to recenter the focus and win back the sympathy. This wasn't motherhood, he claimed, it was strategy. Narrative control at its finest. But the baby bump itself, that raised questions even Meghan's publicists couldn't spin. Trevor, along with countless viewers, noticed how her stomach seemed to change size depending on the angle, the outfit, or the day. Some days it looked high, other days, shockingly low. And once, while bending to pick something up, The bump appeared to shift unnaturally. Internet sleuths paused, rewatched, zoomed in. It didn't feel real, and maybe it wasn't. But even that mystery wasn't the most unsettling thing Trevor had to say, because he wasn't just questioning the pregnancy, he was questioning the person behind it. Trevor Engelson didn't describe Meghan with bitterness. He described her with clarity. And what he painted wasn't a villain, it was something far more unsettling, a performer who never left the stage. According to Trevor, Meghan had an extraordinary talent, one that extended far beyond memorizing lines or camera presence. She had the uncanny ability to cry on cue, not in auditions. In real life, he said she could shift moods like a light switch, tears when needed, a tremble in her voice at just the right moment, eyes glassy, hand to chest, the whole production. It was mesmerizing. And dangerous. Trevor remembered moments when they'd argue behind closed doors, only for Meghan to immediately compose herself and deliver a flawless emotional monologue to someone else. A friend, a producer, even a family member, shifting blame, gathering sympathy, and winning the room without blinking. She rehearsed, he said. I saw her do it in front of mirrors, before job interviews, before difficult conversations. She practiced being relatable. At first, Trevor chalked it up to nerves, but the longer they were together, the more deliberate it felt. Like every public moment, every vulnerable anecdote, was part of a broader script. Even Meghan's first boyfriend, childhood friend Joshua Silverstein, hinted at her fierce sense of direction. How, even at 13, she knew where she wanted to go. But Trevor says that ambition came with a trade-off. Everything and everyone became a stepping stone. And when Meghan transitioned from actress to duchess, the performance didn't stop. It evolved. The way she walked, spoke, smiled, it all changed. Softer, sweeter, more maternal. Trevor said it was like watching her step into a costume that fit a new storyline. Not because it was who she was, but because it's what the world expected. He even recalled Meghan studying images of royal pregnancies, Diana, Kate, other duchesses. She paid attention to how they cradled their bumps, what they wore, how they spoke. Trevor believed it wasn't admiration, it was research, and the more time passed, the clearer it became. Meghan didn't just want to be part of the royal family, she wanted to control the narrative from within it. But the way their marriage ended, that's where the mask slipped entirely. For a long time, Trevor tried to convince himself the distance was the reason. That's what Meghan told the press. That's what she told friends. Long-distance marriages are hard. It just wasn't the right time. But Trevor says the real story was far colder and far more calculated. He didn't get a heartfelt conversation. He didn't get closure. He got a small box in the mail containing the wedding ring she once promised to wear forever. No note, no explanation, not even a phone call. That was it. For Trevor, that was the moment the illusion shattered. The warm, loving woman he had fallen for was gone, replaced by someone laser-focused on her trajectory. Someone who didn't just walk away, she erased him from the script. And the more he reflected, the more he realized he'd been slowly pushed out long before the ring arrived. Meghan had begun building a new world filled with people who could elevate her, endorse her, praise her. And in that world, there was no room for a man who remembered her before the transformation. One memory stuck with him. Meghan had once prepared for a film role where she played a pregnant woman. Trevor remembered how she'd borrowed different-sized belly props, test out camera angles, take photos of herself in various lighting, all to nail the realism. She even asked him for feedback. Does this look natural? Would a pregnant woman move like this? At the time, it felt like dedication. Now, it felt like foreshadowing, because when he saw those exact same poses, the gentle hand on the bump, the calculated tilt of the head, the distant, dreamy smile, not in a scene, but on royal red carpets, the resemblance was chilling. Too. Trevor, it wasn't instinct. It was muscle memory, but the most haunting realization, even then, in front of the cameras, surrounded by photographers and flashing lights, he didn't see a mother. He saw an actress, playing the role of a lifetime, and that wasn't even the final twist. To the world, Meghan Markle's journey into motherhood was framed as a modern royal miracle, a woman of color, breaking boundaries, bringing new life into an ancient institution. But to Trevor Engelson, it was something else entirely, a branding campaign, he said. The transformation was almost immediate. Once the pregnancy was announced, Meghan's entire aesthetic changed, like someone flipping a switch. Gone were the bold Hollywood fits, the high-powered silhouettes. In their place came softer lines, neutral tones, and demure smiles. Suddenly, she wasn't just Meghan, she was the maternal duchess, gentle, glowing, grounded. It was deliberate, a strategy, a performance, a courting. To him, Meghan devoured royal maternity press clippings. She studied how Princess Diana had posed during her pregnancies, how Kate carried herself, what colors they wore, and even how long they waited before appearing in public after giving birth. It wasn't about tradition, it was about optics. He believed every outing was choreographed for emotional impact, every public appearance timed for maximum media buzz. The belly cradles, the profile angles, the carefully chosen coats that highlighted but never exaggerated the bump to the world. It looked intimate, maternal, sincere, but Trevor said it was rehearsed. Every moment, even the photos, the royal walkabouts, the carefully curated images posted at just the right times. It all felt less like a family milestone and more like a brand rollout. And here's the part that shook him most. Meghan didn't seem particularly moved by the journey. Not privately, not personally. She seemed focused, not on preparing for motherhood, but on how it looked. He said it wasn't about building a home. It was about building a narrative, one that millions would buy into, one that would sell books, magazines, documentaries, one that could rewrite history in real time. And if that was the plan, it worked until people started noticing the cracks, because behind the glow and the grace, something always felt just a little off. And Trevor wasn't the only one who noticed. For a time, the royal family played along. They smiled for photos, sent congratulatory statements, clapped at just the right moments. But behind palace walls, Trevor believed something shifted, something the public couldn't see. They stopped being enchanted and started being concerned. At first, Meghan was everything the firm hoped for. Articulate, camera-ready, culturally relevant, a breath of modernity in a centuries-old system. But according to Trevor, the royal family didn't pull away because they didn't understand her. They pulled away because, eventually, they did. The patterns Trevor had lived through, the sudden narrative changes, the perfectly timed tears, the subtle power plays began to surface in the palace too. And when they did, the charm turned to caution. Leaks to the press, staff suddenly quitting, dramatic interviews that painted the monarchy as cold and uncaring. Trevor says it all mirrored the cycle he had endured. At first, Meghan was the dream, but slowly, everything began to revolve around her. Her needs, her image, her version of events. And just like Trevor had once been quietly pushed aside, so were the royals. There were no blowout fights, no screaming matches, just a steady withdrawal of access, of warmth, of trust. Trevor believes the royal family saw what he saw years before. A woman not simply trying to belong, but trying to reshape the spotlight around herself. And when that didn't happen on her terms, she flipped the script, turning victim once more. But this time, the world was watching. And as Meghan and Harry took their leave, with cameras rolling and contracts waiting, Trevor remained silent, until now. For years, Trevor Engelson stayed quiet. He watched as his ex-wife soared to unimaginable fame, as headlines praised her courage, as millions embraced her story, a woman who fought the odds, endured the crown, and emerged stronger than ever. And through it all, Trevor said nothing, out of respect, maybe out of fear, maybe even out of some last thread of love. But eventually, the silence became unbearable, because as he watched Meghan reshape her image, he also watched her erase pieces of their past, pieces he knew were real, moments they lived, pain they shared, decisions that didn't fit the fairy tale narrative. He didn't want revenge. He didn't want attention, but he did want the truth to breathe even just once. "I let her tell the story for too long," he reportedly told a close friend, but some of that story wasn't hers to tell. Trevor knew the risks. Speaking out meant stepping into a media firestorm. It meant being labeled bitter, jealous, irrelevant. But staying quiet meant something worse, letting a global audience continue to applaud a performance he believed was never real. So he spoke, not with accusations, but with memories. Not with malice, but with measured clarity. He didn't scream. He didn't speculate. He simply pulled back the curtain, and what stood behind it wasn't a monster. It wasn't a villain. It was a woman with a gift for performance, and a relentless hunger for control. Trevor's story doesn't destroy Meghan's, but it complicates it deeply. Because if even half of what he claims is true, then maybe the real Meghan Markle isn't the misunderstood heroine. Maybe she's the greatest role she's ever played, and the world. We've all been watching the show. If you found this story eye-opening, make sure to like the video, subscribe, and drop a comment below. Do you believe Trevor's version of events, or is this just the aftermath of a love that didn't survive the spotlight?